Hello there. The Shining is an interesting case study into the psychology of horror media. There are a number of clever psychological tricks at play to make the audience uncomfortable, such as spaces not lining up, obvious continuity errors, and the like. This video isn't about that. In watching several video essays talking about The Shining, I was exposed to a lot of crackpots spouting crackpot theories. These Shining theories are an insult to both Kubrick and to human intelligence. They are also irrelevant. The purpose of media is communication. Effective communication communicates effectively. Therefore, effective media communicates effectively. It does not hide its message behind impenetrable barriers. For example, suppose I am editing a film and on one screen I place an encoded message, like the one presented here, which I claim contains the key to understanding the film. Whatever I have encoded in this message is irrelevant because I have not given you the key to decipher the code. This would not make me a skillful director, artist, or man of vision. It would make me a pretentious blowhard. If there is a hidden message within a piece of media, it should be hidden such that every normal person who thinks things through should arrive at a similar conclusion. The disparity between the many Shining theories means that either the message is hidden so well as to be irrelevant, or, more likely, there is no hidden meaning. These theories either insult Kubrick by stating that he is bad at communicating through film, or they insult the general audience by stating that everyone in the world except me is too stupid to see what is obvious. Many of these theories inadvertently insult both. This leads us to another issue. If a message is too obtusely hidden, it becomes impossible to know what details are a clue versus what is incidental. Even a perfectionist is not perfect. The Shining is not Kubrick's work alone. It did not turn out exactly as he intended. If The Shining was perfect, Kubrick would have felt no need to produce a subsequent film. In any kind of creative process, things do not go perfectly. Plans are adapted on the fly to suit external conditions. During the creative process, you come up with new ideas and change your old ones. Opportunities and conveniences arise that were not present or available during the initial planning stages. Because of all this, you as the audience do not know what he specifically oversaw. You do not know what was intentional or just incidental. For instance, in one scene, there was a Playgirl mag on a chair. People enjoy pointing this out as evidence of their theory, but the problem is that you do not know the origin of this prop. Did Kubrick select the magazine with intention of encoding some hidden meaning? Or did he say, "Hey, somebody grab a magazine for Buddy over there to read during the scene," with the specifics of the magazine being irrelevant? Or was the magazine left there by mistake and he decided that it just worked? For another example, one of the common theories states that the film is an allegory for the genocide of the American Indian. As evidence for this, they point out many elements within the set dressing which feature Indian iconography. What they neglect is that the film is set in a rustic American hotel, and most rustic American hotels in the real world feature Indian art, buffalo heads, and other stereotypical Western iconography. This is equivalent to someone theorizing that a film set in a Wendy's is about the Highland clearances because of the abundance of a certain red-haired girl. This all brings us to the next point. Subtext and hidden meaning, even were they present, are worthless if the author doesn't say anything with them. We take the previous example of The Shining being really about the genocide of the American Indian. If we assume this theory is correct, the next question is, what does Kubrick actually say about this subject? Any possible interpretation is either ambiguous enough to be irrelevant or unambiguous enough to be meaningless. For the former, when grasping at straws, two people can use the same clues to come to polar opposite conclusions. For instance, is the film criticizing genocide or defending it? For the latter, the only unambiguous interpretations are worthless truisms like the Indian Wars were violent. You don't get credit for having subtext if you don't use your subtext to say anything interesting. One theory stands out as a good example of everything I'm criticizing. It states that the film is about the abandonment of the gold standard. The evidence presented is the Gold Room set, and a bit of trivia that the real-life book prop which was used for Jack's manuscript is a scrapbook of tidbits about economics and the gold standard. For the first problem, this information about the book is irrelevant. as the contents of the book prop are never shown to us during the film. If I were to produce a film and then tell you that the key to understanding the film is reading an unspecified paragraph of the annual archaeological report of the Ontario Archaeological Museum, that doesn't count as depth. If this were Kubrick's intention, he hasn't even given us a similar meager clue. For the second problem, if this book with unrevealed contents are supposed to be key to understanding the film, then why don't we consider the contents of the other prop books relevant? What of the binders on the desks? From the perspective of the viewer, all are equal. They are all incidental background details. For the third problem, we do not know the origin of the book prop, or if the book prop is meant to be a literal representation of the fictional manuscript or just a stand-in. Does the real-world prop contain information on the gold standard because that is what Jack is meant to be working on? Or does it contain that information because that was Kubrick's hobby, and having a book to hand, he thought it would make for a convenient prop? We need a weird scrapbook, here's a weird scrapbook. Were the contents of the book intentional or just incidental? We don't get to know. Further, the logic behind taking the undisclosed contents of this scrapbook are not taken to their logical conclusion. If the scrapbook, this minor incidental prop, is meant to be taken at literal value and not as a signifier or stand-in for a fictional object, why then do we not apply the same standard to the actors, who after all have a much more significant role in the film? Jack Nicholson was reportedly a user of cocaine. Does this mean that The Shining is about drug addiction? For the fourth problem, what does Kubrick actually say about the gold standard? Was the gold standard good, bad, worse than the genocide of the American Indian? Was abandoning the gold standard worse than the genocide of the American Indian? I have yet to see a single interpretation based on sound logic, as well as evidence that cannot be used to present the opposite interpretation. These theories, and theories like them, are wrong and dumb, and even if they were not wrong and dumb, they would be irrelevant. The end.